Welcome to the Scrum.org Community Podcast, a podcast from the home of Scrum. In this podcast, we feature professional Scrum trainers and other Scrum practitioners sharing their stories and experiences to help learn from the experience of others. We hope you enjoy this episode.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ryan Ripley with Agile for Humans and professional Scrum trainer with Scrum.org. I'm stepping in as a guest host for episodes highlighting the experiences of other Scrum.org professional Scrum trainers. I hope you enjoy getting to know these amazing people. Welcome. It's another episode of Becoming a Scrum Master. I'm your host, Ryan Ripley. Joining us today is Nichervan. He is a fellow PST, but also prior to that was a Scrum Master. And so thanks for being here. Super excited to learn about your journey and some of the things you learned along the way.
Thank you for having me, Ryan. Glad to be here.
Oh, absolutely. So let's jump into it. Can you share the story or a story of how you first encountered Scrum and what motivated you to become a Scrum Master? And specifically, was there a particular moment or experience that kind of put that hook in that you just could not stop thinking about Scrum? Does that make sense?
It does, absolutely. I got involved in product development in about 96 when I graduated from university studying computer science. And I was involved in a number of product delivery. And over the years, one of the things that happened, we built a sales tool, I remember, and it took us 12 months to build it. And when we eventually shipped the product to the customer, it was so far from their imagination, they couldn't use it. The product was not fit for purpose. And I remember thinking, we can't keep doing this. If we had only spent just a handful of times engaging with our customers, collaborating, we would have had a different result.
Sure.
And that's when I started looking around. And I came across Scrum, and I thought, yeah, this is going to help me do my job better, create better products. And in 2006, I became a Scrum Master when I was working for Sky TV. So that was it. I was hooked.
So Sky TV is where it came into focus for you.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Transformation, and everything changed.
Excellent. Was there a specific project, you talked about a situation where you saw the need for Scrum, right? So now that you've moved into this environment where you can use Scrum, was there like a eureka or light bulb moment that made you realize the power and potential of Scrum, where you actually saw Scrum really shine in full force and in full action?
It did, because one of the first products I worked on after learning about Scrum was to rebuild a new product, legacy product, to a new structure, and being able to genuinely say, do you know what? I don't actually know how this is going to work. I don't have all the answers. Okay. We are going to build a bit at a time to replace what we had. We're going to do it differently. We're not going to write requirements for every single thing. We're going to experiment. We're going to use our creativity to come up with some genuine solutions where it actually meets a customer's need. But to have the courage to say, do you know what? We can't do all of it. Even if we can, we're going to focus on what's important. Typically, we try and touch everything, right? We touch everything. We open everything up. We say, no, actually, we're just going to focus on what's important. And that was what was surprisingly, when we were talking to our business stakeholders, how willing and how keen they were to do that as well. Because I think from technology, we used to probably push them to do that. You have to define everything up front. How unfair is that? Why do we think they know better than us, that they have this magic wand that they can predict everything? They don't. They're just a team like us. So they were very keen to say, you know what? We can build this together.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. And there's no way back after that.
Oh, no. That's one of the more powerful aspects of Scrum. And we're seeing that across a lot of these discussions where once people see the collaborative nature and you get business and tech and legal and security and you get everyone together in the room and you realize we don't have to fight and struggle anymore. It's really hard to go back to the old way, isn't it?
It is. And one of the things is really funny sometimes when I do the training, and some people say it's really difficult to change this. And I said, but now you've learned about Scrum, now you've picked up, you have the knowledge. I can't see how you can go back and do it differently, right? Because if you think about Scrum, well, which part of it wouldn't you do? Which part of it doesn't make sense to help us, right?
Yeah.
It makes sense. Now you have the knowledge. It's no way back.
Cannot unsee it, right?
You cannot unsee it. It's done. It's stuck.
I love that.
Yeah.
So when it comes specifically to the Scrum Master role, has your perception and execution of it, how has that evolved over the years? And are there aspects of the role or the accountabilities, right? We'll use the proper language there, that you view differently now compared to when you started?
Yeah. So when I started, I was technical. I was a development manager. So I was involved, leading, telling people what to do, coming up with plans for the teams. But obviously that was the initial transition. But as you start learning about Scrum, saying, actually, hang on a second, we have a responsibility to grow our teams. We have a responsibility to create that self-management team so that teams can actually solve their own problems. Instead of every time something goes wrong, they look for me. Where are you? Where is Nichervan? Can he solve it? And that has changed considerably from 2006, where actually I would lead quite a lot of the product delivery, to now being someone who would spend time. There are times where I will lead. Absolutely will lead. When I may need to make a decision, but actually I take the team with me and help the team grow so they can make their own decisions. And there's a big change from going there to where we are now.
Oh, absolutely. That there seems to be a progression of, a lot of us came from a project management or a middle management position. And I don't know about you, but it took me probably a year to detox from just assigning work and telling people what to do and trying to lead it. It's almost like you have to trust that things will work out, even if you're not in control of all of it.
Which is understandable, right? Letting go of that control. You spend your career building all these skills, and then you have to actually change direction, right? It's one of the reasons why we face so much resistance when we transition, or when you go into an organization, is you go to a company where people have spent their life building a career, building the skills. And then we say, you know what, there is a better way of doing it. And if we don't say that message properly, safely, those people will feel anxious. It's understandable, right?
And it's often difficult too. And I think a lot of us face this crisis of conscience, or whatever we would call it, that what we thought we had control all those years, and it turns out we never did. And that's a really hard pill to swallow. Like for me, it was just, yeah, I was wrong about this. I was not in control of anything. And so let's use a framework that lets us make better decisions frequently.
Yeah.
Some people look at that, and I don't know if you've seen this too, where they won't let go of that illusion of control. Like
Absolutely.
For some reason, admitting that we really can't control everything is just so devastating.
It is, absolutely. And accepting that, to say, you know what, we can't control everything. I can't predict everything. There are no guarantees, right? And using that to make decisions, using that to say, you know what, I'm going to experiment with this. I'm going to do this to actually get more information to help me make that decision. And for me, because I saw both sides of it when I transitioned, when I use my experience to talk to other people, it is to say, really, it is. You can try and control it. You can try as much as you want. It's just not going to happen. You may think you do, but you don't have it.
Yeah. No, it's just such a tricky concept, but it's one that people really need to work through.
Absolutely.
What advice would you give to someone who's aspiring to become a Scrum Master? They're not there yet, but they're curious, they're interested, they might take that first step. And would there be any particular mindset, skills, or habits that you believe are crucial for someone to be successful as they start this journey?
So one of the things I always talk about, maybe some people might not agree, is that if all you know is Scrum, that's probably not a great thing.
Right.
If you have another skill and you complement it with Scrum, that is it. That is when you're useful, right? Because Scrum is just a set of skills, set of accountabilities that you take on. Because one of the conversations is saying that if all you know is Scrum and your team stop doing Scrum, what happens then? Right? What value can you add?
It's a great question.
Yeah. So for me, it is, if you have other skills, which most people do have, and you add it, fantastic. And one of the easiest ways I found, and I've really helped a lot of people, is that if you want to move into it, if you're really interested, learn as much as possible, but trying to do that within the organization you're in now, trying to build that skill, trying to get that. understanding of what it is, so that you can at least practice it and feel for it, see what is this right for me. Because a lot of people would have some really useful facilitation skill, coaching skills that they can use that. They may not know that actually that will help, but people have those skills. It's just that being aware of which of these skills are useful when.
Yeah. It's almost, and if I'm reading too much into this, pull me back a bit, but it's almost like perhaps someone that wants to be a Scrum Master could choose to build up skill sets on a team first. Be an analyst, be a coder, be a project manager, be a support person, be someone who's working on a team, and then elevate and learn Scrum at a deeper level and step into that accountability. Is that kind of where we're going?
Sense. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. It's just that you become a bit more cross-skilled. You have more than one skill that you can apply, which is incredibly useful, right? As Scrum Masters, we encourage our teams to pick up more skills. Why not us? Why shouldn't we do that?
I wholeheartedly agree. I think even today most of my time is spent training, although I can get pulled out of my home every once in a while to go visit a client, but still always building skills even today. And this has been the better part of 20 years of my career, and still new books, new ideas, new podcasts. Right? And I don't think it ever stops, does it?
It doesn't. And as I said, I graduated in 96, a long time ago, and I've been a Scrum Master for 17 years. I still love to work. Training is something I do on the side. My love is still product development, and I do that. And I still join teams, and sometimes going, do you know what? I don't actually know how I'm going to do that. I don't know how to handle that scenario, right? I know do that. And one of the other things I talk about in my teaching is that one of the biggest challenges when you become a Scrum Master is the amount of learning you have to do. Not because you have to, but because you want to. Every time you read an article, you find 10 other areas that spider webs that goes out saying, I need to learn about that. I need to learn about that. So absolutely, that learning never stops.
I love those moments where I'm going to spot where I don't know how I'm going to do that. And I think if you love those moments, the Scrum Master role or accountabilities, I think you'll be just fine. If that terrifies you, or if that's a scary thing, good, because that should be a little bit scary. But those are the moments where we really lean into, and I think show the worth and value of a Scrum Master. So
it is,
wonderful call out there. I really appreciate that advice. I think we mentioned books and other things. I think the last question I have here, and really appreciated all of these answers up to this point. What's one book every Scrum Master should read? And it doesn't have to be an Agile book. It doesn't have to be a Scrum book. But the one that you would hand, let's pretend that your best friend on the planet came to you and said, I'm going to be a Scrum Master. What's the one thing I must read? What would you hand that person?
Okay, it's always to pick a difficult one, but so when I'm not plugging your book here, Ryan, but what I'm talking about is that when I read your book, it's not that I thought it was the best book, is that I could recognize myself in all of those.
That's great.
I recognize the problems that you saw, the scenarios you saw. They are common. They're very common, right? And you articulated much better than I would do. So for me, as a Scrum Master, if you want to do some research to understand, okay, what kind of problems teams, they can look at yours. Yeah. If that's one book. If I'm going to pick another one, I'm probably going to pick the Coaching for Group Performance by Thomas Whitmore. That's a really good one from a coaching perspective. I really enjoyed that one. I don't know if you've had the opportunity to read that or not, but that was really good.
I haven't. Who's the author of that?
Thomas Whitmore.
I'll put it in the show notes. It's another book that I've not heard of, but doing this series with all of you PSTs and Scrum Masters, I'm probably going to spend a lot of money at Amazon. So be a lot of books showing up, but I certainly appreciate that recommendation. I've not heard of it, but I will definitely check it out.
It's Coaching for Performance. Yes, it's got some little nuggets that you can use as a Scrum Master, which is really helpful.
Well, that's amazing. I really appreciate you doing this. I have totally enjoyed finally meeting you, and I'm so glad you decided to carve some time out. Is there anything that you would like to promote? Anything you'd like to put in front of the audience before we wrap this up?
No, I'm good. I'm all good. Thank you.
All right. Then I'm going to close this out.